Hey, Burke, how's it going?
Good, Randy. How are you?
Excellent, thanks. Hope you had a great Labor Day weekend.
Couldn't have asked for more. Perfect weather, good family, friends.
Awesome. And, nice football game Monday night, huh?
It was a good football game. I was more upset about not being able to make the club championship, but
there you go. Good. So, for everybody who doesn't know, BC, huge upset. First time in a long time. Top 10, obviously debatable because of the prior loss, Georgia Tech. But anyway, all good all around. So really excited today to have Burke Mesta on. He's got a wealth of experience, and recently he's a founder of Belsa, which he'll tell us more about. We have a great title topic, Finding the Balance, Trust in Relationships versus AI. And speaking of relationships, we have Avenir as our sponsor today. They're the relationship sponsor of Sales Community. Dave Knorr, who's the brains behind Avenir, is probably the world's leading expert of anything to do around relationships. Knorr back, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or more, back when I was at Sun, even before HP. I got really close to as a mentor and coach around just the whole kind of relationship management, kind of what you do and how you do it. And he has several books published on the topic, and is recently launching a cool new app called Avenir, which I think will be a game changer around how everybody leverages and manages relationships. And I think you've had some exposure in there too with him as well.
Absolutely. Burke, right? I was speaking with him and his team in the early stages, working on the MVP, and I couldn't support it more. I think it's fantastic in what they're creating in terms of the whole relationship economics and the dynamic use of it rather than traditional CRMs.
Awesome. And as always, we got behind the scenes Tucker helping us. So Tucker, thank you so much. And for those that are members of Sales Community, also thank you. For those that are not, Tucker has a free link up, salescommunity.com/summerfree. So by way of introduction, Burke lives in Darien, Connecticut, kind of New York Metro on the outskirts, so to speak, I guess. Has a lovely wife, Seidl, and a junior high school boy and a fifth grade girl. So no empty nest for you for a while, I guess, huh?
Well, he's started looking at colleges this year, but yeah, the little one's still got a ways to go.
Awesome. And we're trying to figure out how we met, but we think it was probably 10, 15 years ago, probably through Bill Hogan or Tom Mendoza, the St. Baldrick's event, which is an amazing event that you've done a lot of work with. So certainly commend you for all of those efforts.
No, thank you very much. Absolutely. Those guys brought me in, and I haven't looked back since. It's been great for the last 12 years.
Nice. And we obviously, know each other, and you're, great executive, great person, great following in terms of customers, partners, team, all that. But I got some intros from some other people that know you even better working with you. So no particular order, but Eric Mann says, Burke is a great listener who exudes authenticity and thoughtfulness, something many managers and leaders fall far short on. In meetings I have been in with him, he has a great enthusiasm and energy around his areas of expertise, always very positive. Bill Hogan says, international man about town, Turkish-born, resided or educated in Switzerland, Libya, Turkey, Switzerland, and the U.S., 1996 Olympian representing Turkey. What sport was that for?
So I was a sprinter and a jumper, the 100-meter and the long jump.
Wow. What was your 100-meter time?
10.0 was my record. I actually won Mass States and tied it one year back in high school. And it was a photo finish against the then current running back for Penn State football.
No way. Wow.
I blew out my ACL right before the Atlanta games playing pickup basketball.
Oh.
And actually didn't get to go and run in the games.
Oh. And what are the 100 times these days?
The world record's still down at just under 9.6, but the winnings, I think this year the winner was about 9.8.
Really? So it's an amazing 0.1, 0.2 difference from yours to that.
But if you think 100 meters in 10 seconds, 0.1 is 10 meters, right? It's
Yeah.
a couple of strides difference. It's
Awesome.
remarkable.
All right.
And then the other one was the long jump, obviously. So
nice. And then Bill goes on to say, also avid golfer, skier, youth sports enthusiast, husband, and great father, and annual St. Baldrick's Shavee and ambassador. And I always get amazed with this. So, Bill will always see, right? Obviously, I'm jealous because I'm in here, but he'll do the shave every year, and it grows back like even better than it was the year before. Just crazy.
Yeah, I commit my shave for the whole month after the shave because mine grows back kind of like a chia pet. So I tell everybody I'm going to shave it bald for the whole month, and then I'll let it grow back.
Amazing. Very, very jealous. And then from the legendary Tom Mendoza, and NetUp, we had the pleasure of working with Berk, a consummate sales executive and partner. As impressive as his long-term commitment to helping fight children's cancer by raising money and awareness through St. Baldrick. So pretty good intros there, and good for your ego.
Thank you.
So really
good ones to get him from.
Nice. So jumping into the questions here. So you were Lehigh 96.
Correct.
Great school. And your first job, you're fortunate enough to go to PTC.
I was, yeah. I graduated Lehigh Mechanical Engineering Applied Math. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but my dad was a big international engineer builder, hence why we lived all over the world. And a friend of mine connected me to PTC, and I went into engineering at PTC in QA. And about a week and a half into the job, I was about to pull all this hair out on my own because it was too isolationist. And so I migrated my way quickly into product management for a while. And I said, I need to get closer to the customer, right? And understand how they want to use everything we're producing. And I had to fight my way through a gentleman, Peter Terrell, to actually get my first look. He's like, no, we never take engineers. But then I had done my homework and challenged him in that he was an engineer that had come into sales and a successful one at that, working for John McMahon. So it was a great transition, started into inside sales, then moved into major accounts through my tenure there of almost 5 years.
Oh, that's great. And, for those who don't know, MedPick, I think several people claim to be the fathers, the godfathers, but most everybody I know say it was really John McMahon. And we had him on. Anybody can look him up if you just Google his name, Tech Sales Insights. We had him on last year. He's a good friend down in Naples, and certainly really impressive. And I say I'm just kicking myself because we all were kind of doing the same thing, but we never really kind of branded it or kind of got the rigor around it. So I say, God bless you, John.
I would like to meet anyone that would actually contest that John wasn't the godfather of Medic. Maybe you can say the evolution with the extra C and the P, those are different evolutions, but the original Medic was his. And I practice and preach it with my teams effectively today. Actually, my former CEO, after I left, just texted me this last week, and he wrote, what was Medic all about again, and how you were actually making people use it? And I had to reply to him on trying to help coach him on trying to get his next gen to be able to actually still follow it. So if there's a religion I follow, that's the one.
There you go. So now you've had an impressive career from there. So maybe just kind of briefly go through that.
Yeah, I was at PTC really through 1999, and then PTC had made an acquisition at the time, and one of the acquisition candidates was an executive by the name of Peter McKay. And so Peter McKay, I followed Peter out of PTC into a really interesting opportunity in 1999, and had a good run there for a short period through the dot-com bubble. And then evolved into more banking and financial services technology. Moved on to Bicis through 2006 when we sold that company, which was a known competitor to the Fidelities and the Fiservs of the world. Ran the major account sales and grew that organization, and we ended up selling that into 3 different parts. And then evolved from Bicis. When I was looking at which entity of Bicis I would go to, I actually got a phone call from the former president of Fiserv, one of the former presidents, Alex Gronendijk. And Alex and I had a history of competing against one another within his teams. And he said, I'm tired of competing with you. Why don't you come join our crew? So I joined Temenos, which is known international public company, wanted to branch and grow in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere. Alex ran the Western Hemisphere, hired me to head up North America for him. And so we started to grow Temenos organically, had to change a lot of people to be better fit in the role. And then really decided that a strategic was a better way of moving about this. So we cut a big deal with Frank Martir and Metavante to give exclusivity of the US business, because they brought customers, they brought knowledge of the regulatory environment, and we brought the underlying technology that they needed to upscale their then antiquated technology, and effectively structured a really good deal that way. So that led me through really 2007, and then 2007 I kind of followed an old passion of mine, wanting to get into the world of investment finance, and went into capital markets and emerging markets with a boutique merchant investment bank in New York that focused on Latin America and Eastern Europe and Turkey. And that was my in. And worked there into the global financial crisis and through, which was the probably one of the greatest learning experiences of my career. And as that was progressing and, obviously having its challenges, I got a random phone call in the summer of 2009 through a referral, and decided to interview with this company, private company, Viewpoint. And I said, well, I don't know if I want to get back into SaaS and managed services. And we talked for about 6 months. And at the end of 2009, in December, they convinced me to come on board to help really. Sorry. So ultimately, Viewpoint was purpose-built with a smaller customer base, but known big banks, formed by Chase, Bank of America, but didn't really have a formal commercial strategy and practice. And so I came in to really help evolve not only the commercial strategy, practice, and revenue channel to grow across more customers, but also to help evolve the product to expand into other vertical markets. So I joined them at the end of 2009, beginning of 10, and really spent the last 14 years focusing on that strategy, because the legacy business was actually an organically declining business. So we needed to maximize market share to grow, and then expand new customer bases to grow, and fought those forces well through 2022, effectively through the pandemic, in spite of some of the challenges there. But it became time and apparent for me to kind of move on. Had a good run, and I wish them the best, but I left at the end of December of last year. Took a little time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next, which included some board advisory roles and some consulting engagements. Hence why I formed Belsa as really a PEP platform to enable me to do that, and have been doing that for the bulk of this year, while I still, opportunistically explore good opportunities that would be a good fit for me and for an organization culturally and practically.
Great. So at Viewpoint, kind of your ICP, what type of companies, what type of titles would you sell to?
So when I got there, the ICP was really focused on banking, heads of operation and technology, because what we were was a software as a service, platform and infrastructure as a service, delivered as a privately hosted managed service for the banking sector. Where we grew and evolved was outside of a very specific payment technology, being checks and ACH, and grew into other information technology, servicing mortgages, other lines of lending. And then we expanded into insurance, with the likes of Aflac. We run all of their claims, from individual to group claims, from capture through decisioning, through issuance of payment decisioning, and then they will actually issue payments. We expanded into manufacturing, but always the ICP was senior executives in technology, CIOs, CTOs in some cases, but heads of operations and lines of business. We really had to bring them together. The stakeholders were all important to support the decision, if you look at it from a rapid process, because you needed a lot of security, legal, risk, and compliance input, because you're talking about reputational value of an organization, information, and a lot of regulated content that we were managing for them.
Awesome. Great. So then sounds like you could be recruitable for a full-time type job. What would you be interested in doing? And what type of company?
Absolutely. I am definitely open for the right role. I think the first and foremost is it's got to be an environment with the right cultural fit. People and environment matter. Heavy bureaucracy becomes something of a challenge to me and my personality, especially at 50. But looking at organizations, obviously a proven product market fit's important, but an organization that respects the relationship with the customer and the partnership base as top priority, and then that with its employees to really help fulfill a challenge, not just sell something, address a problem and a challenge to them, potentially find a solution that you might not be the best fit for, and behave altruistically to guide them to that solution, because it'll pay back dividends over time. But at the end of the day, what matters is growth in revenue, growth in bottom line margin. So being able to have that team work closely with that team on the revenue, customer facing side for organic paths as well as inorganic paths in the channel, and inorganic paths for potential M&A opportunities and strategic ventures that might help us grow.
Awesome. I'd hire you. Actually, I have an idea we can talk about offline as well. Title topic here, finding the balance, trust and relationships versus AI. So as we're getting into the questions here, anybody that is watching us or listening to us, feel free to chime in with any comments or any questions, and we will do our best to get to those. So, it may sound obvious, but kind of why are relationships important?
Relationships aren't just important. Relationships are the foundation. If you don't have them, then you're short-sighted. In business, my philosophy is very much you got to play the long game. Otherwise, you're just going for a short transaction, and that's not going to work. So relationships are important. I talk to my teams all the time. They'll ask anyone. I always said, have you become friends with these people? Have you taken their families out to dinner? Do you know what's going on in their lives? Do you understand the challenges that they're having that affect their challenges at work and their organization? At the same time, do you know the customer and organization well enough that you know their long-term objectives and potentially what their challenges are that they might not have identified, and bring those two together and really take a very consultative approach? We know all these old strategies that we learned going back to my McMahon days and PTC days of consultative selling, strategic selling, but relationships are what's key to be able to enable that. And so that's one aspect of relationships, to be able to enable what's valuable for you in that relationship or that individual. But secondarily, the power of relationships is more important, because your greatest salesperson and advocate are those relationships and successful customers that have the metrics to be able to show the successes you've achieved for them professionally, for their organization, and personally for their careers.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And then it gets a little goofy these days, right? Especially probably the younger generation really wanting to kind of leverage technology or AI or these other tools, kind of taken away from that kind of human touch for relationships. What do you think about that?
Well, and that's, exactly to our topic today. There's a balance. I think these tools are very important to be able to enable certain aspects of it. The over-reliance by some companies and organizations really has swung the pendulum a little bit too far at times. So the way I look at it is it's become an over-reliance. That over-reliance creates so much noise through different social media and other channels that it causes fatigue. So the people that are on the other side, on the receiving end, how many emails do anybody, yourself, myself included, listening, get continuously on a daily basis that we ignore, of which some of them could be valuable because of the noise and fatigue? And people are always looking for a better mousetrap to try to get their attention. But without relationships, that becomes hard. However, there's obviously the importance of being able to open doors to build relationships. The personal channel, to me, is the most important channel, but you're going to leverage automation to be able to then pursue it further. Hence, the referenceability is going to be of true value. So finding that balance is key. I'm a big proponent of AI, of machine learning. I think the term's overused today, like everything was, right? Cloud came out, it scared everyone. It was ASP back in the 90s when I was into this industry, right? when you look at analytics came out, it was just data warehousing of the late 90s. So AI is really just an evolution of machine learning, and its powers are limitless. It will definitely make things a lot easier in automation, but it will not replace human input. It has to coexist. And so finding that balance is critical for me, to be able to help get the best juice out of the squeeze for everybody.
There you go. And we have a question from Tom. I have a question for Burke. How do you see revenue intelligence platforms changing the CRO role and team? Do you see revenue operations as critical outside tech firms? So maybe do the first one, talking about leveraging revenue intelligence, call recording, coaching in that facet.
Absolutely. I think revenue operations is critical. So you look at revenue operations has been such an evolution today, right? You had markups, you had sales ops. Revenue operations is a great way of kind of helping bridge and bring those all together, have some independence, but bring value in the automation of it. Frankly, I look at marketing, sales really as a continuum. And, there are a lot of organizations that like to have separation of church and state, but if they're not coexisting and collaborating there, then it's a failure. I think a couple of weeks ago, you had someone on the show that spoke about it, but goes back to my days with McKay and McDonough. These guys like talking about, was it smarketing, right? And it's sort of trying to find that merger of the two. Revenue operations is a mechanism not only to be able to help with bringing the bridge between those, but also help take out some of the noise of the administrative side for both organizations. At the end of the day, sales relies on marketing to be able to bring quality of leads and opportunities into the funnel, and marketing relies on sales to be able to generate those further. So I go back to my point of continuum, and hence, I think tied back to a little bit of this question, looking at that continuum as marketing through revenue or lead through revenue intelligence. RevOps is going to be key in that space, and being able to help bring that all together, leverage the insights that are provided there to be able to provide the greatest value for an organization are key.
Absolutely. And it's amazing kind of on the revenue intelligence, call recording side, Gong and others, to be able to have like a virtual coach, right? So if you're not on the sales call, to be able to get the feedback, the coaching, listen to it, kind of pull out, leverage best practices, to say, okay, here's what we should do, or here's how we should do it. It's really just amazing these days.
Well, I go back to our meeting what you hosted at Beaver Creek a few years ago, Randy, which was, one of my favorite experiences I've had over the last few years, because I wasn't expecting the level of engagement we all had. And we were talking about the sales tech stack and the marketing tech stack. And there's so many different products and services that are out there, all having different attributes that are very valuable. The glue of connectivity is the greatest challenge. Even the giant of giants, Salesforce, has some attribute of silos in the way people consume it. So the true value of looking at the continuum and the integration between these and leveraging the information out of each of those is critical. And, Tom asked this question, and obviously I know a little bit about Tom's business. I think very passionately if they're looking at exactly that, looking at the revenue intelligence and being able to extract that value, and then to be able to provide the ability to optimize what's happening up at the top of the funnel, and then bring efficiency on how it comes out to actual closed won revenue.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And then what about the importance of trust, right? Because if you have no trust, there's no relationship or no real relationship. About 4 years ago, I think I was asked to come do a keynote speak at IBM to top 200 executives across the GTS organization, now spun out as Kyndryl. And my presentation, I didn't realize till the 48 hours before, was their keynote speak for an hour speech. So I had to scramble and prepare. And of the hour, I spent about 10 minutes talking about Viewpoint and IBM and our relationship. And the other 50 minutes talking about the power of trust was actually the title of that. And I started with all these people in the room, and I asked them, and you'd even see on sort of the
the quote on my own website and talking about the toughest thing about the power of trust is it's very difficult to build and very easy to destroy. And everyone in the room knew the quote. I'm at IBM. And then I asked, without anyone speaking up, does anybody know who said this quote? And not one hand went up. And I said, you all should be ashamed of yourselves. I read it in the biography by Thomas Watson Jr. This is Thomas Watson, your founder. And
was that the IBM way?
Yeah. And no, it was in Father, Son, and Co. that I read it. But I mean, this is his power. This is his philosophy. He was about customer relationship and trust. That's what he believed in. And no one read this in IBM. No one knew it was him that said it. And I think it should be ingrained in the culture that it's a mandatory read when you join the organization. But the power of trust has different attributes because you build it. You're not just trying to sell someone something for the sake of getting a PO, an order, a deal. You're actually empowering and enabling them to achieve and overcome a challenge they may or may not have recognized in their organization, their operations, that helps them and helps their end customer. At the end of the day, when we sell something, we're out to help an organization, but why? To help their end customers, that helps their top line and their bottom line. We're in the business of profit, but not at the business of hurting someone for that profit. So that power of trust is key. That altruistic nature might also lead you to point away from an offering you have, but then direct it to someone else. Now, what have you done? You've been consultative and guiding, given someone else business, but if it's been valuable, now you've gained trust in multiple people. Now that relationship network is going to then multiply out. Hence, I love again that Avnir's, that's exactly what they're talking about. It's the webbing effect, and the value of that and the power of trust is the core nucleus of that process.
There you go. So kind of wrapping up here on the title topic. So in order to have relationships, obviously you got to have trust, a lot of other things, but then out of that, you've got the best sales tools or your kind of customers, partners, and your people as well, right?
So it's finding the balance between people, process, technology. I think the paradigm of late has been a little where the pendulum swung is technology is driving some people at the forefront and people and process are lagging. I think you have to have the right people in the right roles. Those that aren't, can you develop them better? Look at your top performers. If they're not looking for continuous improvement, then you're not doing the right thing with them. Your bottom performers, if they're not improving, then you move them out. Maybe they're not bad, that they might be badly fit for the role, so you move them elsewhere. But it's optimizing that engine of people, developing them, having the right yet simple processes in place. That's why I still am loyal to the whole MEDIC and rapid philosophy of understand and define these steps, understand the key people and processes and criteria that affect it, build your own internal champion, and then have them help you sell. But then that process can only be enabled by the people and the tools. The tools can't lead, right? That's the cart leading the horse.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's really
and touch on that there with kind of performance management, right? It seems like the rigor of what we used to do kind of 10, 20 years ago has kind of been lost because people are too kind of touchy-feely. Oh, you're going to hurt my feelings. Can't do this, can't do that. And it seems some of the top sales cultures these days, Dell, ServiceNow, and others are still very much onto that. But there's still a lot of companies that I see these days where kind of the concept of getting, giving and getting feedback. It's kind of you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, and I'm in your old school mindset myself. Just we grew up in that generation. Feedback isn't even criticism isn't negative. It's productive for improvement, continuous improvement. You can't be sensitized by that. Feedback, the best way to give it, I always ask for it myself. I have lots of areas to improve. So what do you think I wasn't doing sufficiently? What could I have done differently? Can I give you that same feedback and have that quid pro quo? It's for continuous improvement in a mutual operating style. So I agree with you. The one way I think, technology has also helped in this case in performance management is it provides a platform for better documentation of certain things. I mean, I used to run it in Excel spreadsheets and then I'd have to share it. So technology's enabled it, but it also simplifies the ability to be able to increase the frequency of the communication. So no one's surprised at the end of a year, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, in very short bursts. Then you have a very simple process at the end of a year if you have to, or when you need to look at any kind of performance management actions that you're going to take against teams and employees.
Yeah, and I would say it should be kind of a daily occurrence, not a quarterly or an annual occurrence. And a little trick I picked up along the way would be to say, to kind of break the ice, can I give you some feedback? So what I would usually do after sales calls, as an example, was if it's a sales rep, if I was exec, hey, do you have any feedback for me? Like, well, nobody's, no executives ever asked me for feedback, but eventually the people realize that I genuinely want it, will take it. So, okay, I'm going to lead by example. And then depending, whether they say something or not,
right,
then I will take the opportunity, hey, can I give you some feedback? So you say, can I give you some feedback? Okay, people are ready. I know I'm going to hear something. I may not like it, but okay, I'm going to take it in. And just a nice way to kind of bridge that gap and have it just be an ongoing thing, not a, set in time, every 3 months or 6 months or annual, which then kind of gets a little too awkward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it really ties back to our kind of flagship topic about relationships, right? If you have formed that personal relationship with people at all levels, breaking down some of the barriers of hierarchy, right? Which is leadership, not management, then it's much easier to be able to do that, right? That's sort of paramount to my philosophy is I'm going to get personal with my customers. I'm going to get personal with my team. And then we're going to be able to break down these barriers and we can have a more clear and open communication path.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're passionate about that. So maybe talk more about kind of your style, kind of, leadership versus management.
Well, great entree. It's something I think about all the time. I think, whether it's growing up through my youth in sports, I ended up always being a captain. If I wasn't a captain, an MVP. If I wasn't an MVP, the sportsmanship award. If I didn't have that, I was the unsung hero, which is my favorite award. Because what does that mean? I'm helping everyone else perform at their best by contributing. But to me, those are all components of leadership. My theory on leadership is it's very different than management. A lot of people jump in and go into management and they don't know how to lead. They know how to manage. They know how to administer. The difference, the best example I've given this to a lot of people and people who relate to is in a movie, Braveheart, right? The manager is the king that sits on the back of the horse, sends in the cavalry, the infantry to their death, and then walks away after the flags have been risen. The leader is the guy first sword in battle, arm in arm with his team. Doesn't matter that he ranks above them. He'll draw first blood. He'll take the first injury, but he will lead by example. He will win with them and he will lose with them. That's the difference in style. And that's something that I'm very passionate about with my teams. I've had conflicts with my teams where I'm leader, but you know what? Best example is, months after I left my recent role, one of the people that I remember early in my career, we had a lot of tension and conflict with, writes me and says, I really miss you on our Monday morning calls and how you ran that. Because that was my thing. Every Monday morning, we have a team meeting. And the first 20% of that meeting is not business. I want to know about your lives, your weekend, your family, what evolved. Bullshit talk, right? You want to talk about the game that happened on Sunday night? Great. That's paramount. If you jump right into it, there's no relationships being formed. So that's just my approach on leadership versus management. And there's a balance to be had. I know management has to take place, the administration, but if it's following the leadership, then it's going to be far more fruitful.
Awesome. And along the way, I know you've had a lot of mentors. Any one or two in particular you want to call out, and any specific advice you've received?
Yeah, and I'll call out a few because they're at different levels, right? And I'll even respond to that advice with kind of maybe some regrets about myself and how I took it or didn't take it. Early on, John McMahon wasn't a direct mentor of mine. I met him. I worked in his organization. I was one of 800 people, right? I was a young whippersnapper. I learned a ton from him, Pete Terrell, in that organization. And then I followed Peter McKay, and I learned a lot from Peter McKay. But I criticized
Peter McKay. Actually, I think he's like an accounting guy, right?
From when PTC bought.
No. But Peter McKay, I think, started out. He wasn't kind of on the go-to-market role. I don't know if it was a technical but I remember it was accounting, finance, or something like that role.
I think maybe at Computer Systems before PTC acquired him. But then he went on as kind of leader of operations, go-to-market, everything at eCredit, and that's where I ended up following him into. And I grew impatient as a young guy, right? Because it was the turnaround of the dot-com boom. There was kind of a bust, even though the company and what we had developed was so ahead of its time for 1999, 2000. We were struggling in certain areas. My team had grown and we'd sold contracts outside of the ability to be able to, over our skis, inability to be able to deliver them. And I grew impatient too quickly and moved on to my next opportunity too soon. So there's somewhat of a regret I had there. But when I went on to Bicis, and Bill Neville was really kind of a mentor for me over there, and Lynn Mangum, who was the founder, I still talk to him. I'm going to meet with him. He's well retired now, but I want his wisdom and advice that he gave me back then. But really, one of the things I would say is they help nurture in me what I'm passionate about is follow your passion, be true to yourself, and stay true to the concept and philosophy of trust and relationships. When Bill and I first met, he wasn't going to hire me at Bicis. He's like, you don't deal with core banking. You don't have these relationships. And I said, I reached out my hand. Is everything else past the test? He said, yeah, I'll make a deal with you. You give me this offer, and I guarantee you in 12 months, I will have your largest net new customer, and then I will build out your major account sales organization. And if I do not succeed, I will resign, asking you for nothing. We signed the deal in 11 months. And
nice.
Right? And I wanted to follow Bill after we sold Bicis in parts when he went off to GTS, and I stayed over and went over to Temenos. And then, moving on through the years, I'd say Alex Gronendijk was definitely critical for me. And, we wouldn't have been successful without his leadership and Greg Green on the side of that in what we structured for Temenos with Metavante in what we were launching. And I learned a lot, especially from Greg, right? I've done a lot of contracts in my life. He taught me how to think differently when negotiating contracts. The financial parts of it were easy for me. The constructing of that, my creativity still, benefits from all that. But really looking at other aspects of contracts and how it was important to be able to move forward, especially around all the tough parts of the contract, right? I learned a lot during those days.
Awesome. Really, I mean, nothing better than getting, learning from the experts and the mentors, and really taking in that feedback, right?
Right. And so always looking for more mentors, right? I mean, you've been a mentor, an observation. Bob Billy's been talking about you long before we met. Tom Mendoza is not been a direct mentor, but at the end, I mean, you can't not anything but admire the man. I think the uniqueness of what he brings to the table. By the way, his mind is a steel trap. The guy doesn't forget a name. One time he meets him, and he will bring it on demand better than anyone I've ever seen. He's like a computer in this. So there's tons that I haven't even mentioned, I know, of course, but all of them in different ways. And then, obviously I'm not going to always forget about my dad, right? He was a great mentor in certain areas, but didn't guide in others because it wasn't his world.
Right.
But work ethic and the ability to be able to have complex thinking, that was his specialty, right? He dealt in major, mega international projects, lawsuits with the companies like Bechtel to win, and he led this, and he wasn't even a lawyer. So his work ethic is something that, really came over to me and actually skipped a generation and went exponentially to my son, which I couldn't be more proud of. So I think we should always be seeking out mentors in different ways. And they don't have to be older. They don't have to be more experienced, because you're going to be learning from people and from different experiences. So just be a sponge, take it in. And I like to give what I can, but, look to take from others in the same capacity.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, an amazing legend tech leader. And I used to watch his videos because I would always be at, I'd say, competing companies. And then, such an honor when I was able to meet him, I think probably mostly through Bill Hogan, but, and just, what a great, just a great person overall, and all, professionally and personally. And, he has that Notre Dame thing going against him, but besides that.
Well, you do have their flag right behind you.
I do. It's like, I married into it, so necessary evil.
But I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, right? It's funny. Sometimes you look back and sliding doors, they say. When I was leaving PTC, I went with Pete and I had no regrets, but I was actually looking at considering EMC, which I would have crossed paths with all of you guys back in 2001, or 2000, at the tail end of your EMC run, I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, I'd already left. That's okay.
You had left. All right.
Still, would have been a small world. But anyway, you've been a great guest. For those that have been watching, following along, thank you so much. So one of the last questions I like to ask, if there's any PG Randy story.
I guess I'll go to the Beaver Creek. When you and I spoke about Beaver Creek, we're going to be working in the mornings. We're going to ski in the afternoons. And I said, great. And you asked me, what level skier are you at? And I'm like, well, where was I when I was a competitive athlete, or where am I today? You're like, just what level are you at? I said, I wrote advanced intermediate. So I think Randy was being a little hasty and didn't read the intermediate part and threw me into the advanced group. So I remember getting out there that first day, and we had these two instructor guides that were Olympic caliber skiers, obviously. And I turned to you guys and I said, listen, I've had 5 ACL reconstructions. I don't like to combine bumps, trees, deep powder, and steep at the same time. Separately, I love it, and I prefer carved. So we get off the first slope, and Randy takes off, and the other 2 guys take off, and the lady that was with us, that was the instructor, whose one leg was as thick as my 2 legs probably, she's trying to follow, and I'm racing up, and I stop, and there's a cliff with deep powder bumps and trees. And I said, what the fuck did you just put me into? And you guys are flying down this path. And I turned to the lady and she said, what's the problem? I said, I don't like doing all these together. I've had 5 knee reconstructions. She said, that's all right. I've had 11. Let's go. And she jumps off and left me there. So I followed along, and then you disappeared to go help all the newbies and be their instructor until lunch that morning. So it was great. I wish you would the intermediate advanced.
Sorry. Usually I'm more responsible than that.
I loved it. We'll
have to go back and see what your submission actually was.
And I thought it was advanced intermediate. I kept up, but yeah, my knee was exhausted every day. So I loved it. And so I stopped an hour early on the last day. She made me stop. I said, all right, one more run. And she said, you said that one sentence you can't say at the end of a ski day, just one more.
Oh, yeah.
That's when the injuries happen.
Yeah.
And so she sent me back.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember
it was a great time, though.
Yeah, she's really hardcore. So anyway, great. So you've been an awesome guest. So much wisdom. So great. Certainly, companies looking for your consulting advice. Great. Obviously, full time. Any company would be really excited to get you on board, helping the team and helping them sell more in all ways. And thanks to Avenir for sponsoring today. And again, for those that are part of Sales Community, thanks. For those that are not, you can go to the free link. And Tucker, as always, thanks to you. So everybody have a great rest of week, and go BC.
Go Boston all together.